the Up Coast Studios in Oklahoma City, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson here with Barry Trammell. We're brought to you by Papa John's Pizza. Go online anytime and order your pizza at papajohns.com. Time for our inbox segment. We've got your email questions answered here on video. Let's get right to it with a question from Joe. Joe says, how long will the OSU Powers stand for Travis Ford running the program into the ground? Some serious questions here by Joe.
It is, and I got to tell you, I disagree with the premise. I don't think Travis Ford has run the program into the ground. Travis took over a program that had gone 3 straight years without an NCAA tournament bid. In 6 seasons, before this year as a Cowboy coach, Travis has gotten the Cowboys into March Madness 4 times. So, in some ways, the program is better than it was under Sean Sutton. Now, not better than it was under Eddie Sutton. The Cowboys are a long way from the Eddie Sutton glory days. But clearly, I think Cowboy fans are frustrated. But I will say this, they are still supporting the program. I've been very impressed with the crowds at Gallagher-Iba this year. College basketball in general has had an attendance problem. It's affected Stillwater and most places, but still the crowds have been pretty good. I don't think Travis Ford is going to lose his job.
Well, and let's remember this too. I mean, I will agree, it's not Eddie Sutton good at this point under Travis Ford. Those were some Halcon days basically for Cowboy basketball, and they could get back there. I don't think there's any question about that. But I think it's important to remember Travis Ford lost 2 NBA draft picks off last year's team. He lost 2 other guys, maybe three actually if we count Stevie Clark, 3 other guys that could have potentially been contributors this season if they'd have stuck around or not been run off. And yet here they are, essentially in the thick of things for another NCAA tournament bid. So is it what people want ultimately? No. But I think it's important to remember that this is, I think, potentially his best coaching job, taking a bunch of young guys who really haven't played together, molding them with guys who've been there. Still work to be done. I'd like to see LeBron Nash play a full game sometime and just see what impact that could have. But I think considering the pieces have come together fairly nicely, I still think the Cowboys in line for another NCAA tournament bid. All right, back to the inbox. This one comes from Keith. Keith says, with 6 seconds left in the first half of the Super Bowl, Pete Carroll could kick a field goal or go for a touchdown. He rolled the dice and won. With about 20 seconds left in the game, Pete Carroll could run the ball or pass it. He rolled the dice and lost. When the play works, you look like the smartest coach ever. When it doesn't work, you look like the dumbest coach ever. Good point here, Barry.
Yeah, but I disagree with it because they're not the same. Because the game's not on the line at the end of the first half.
True.
And at the end of the game, with 30 seconds left, that was not a do-or-die play. The Seahawks weren't down to 1 play. They had basically 3 plays. It was second down. They had enough time. They had a timeout. They had enough time for 3 plays. You got to give Marshawn Lynch at least 1 shot, and really 2 or 3, to get it in the end zone from the 1-yard line. And to throw a ball into the middle of the field, basically throw into a crowd. By definition, any pass on the goal line in the middle is in a crowd. That's where everybody is. It was a terrible call. It was a terrible decision. If you don't want to run Marshawn Lynch, roll out or play action, throw out to the flat, do something. Do not throw into a crowd when you got Marshawn Lynch in the backfield.
Yeah, and I like you, like everybody else, I heard Pete Carroll's explanation of why they threw the ball on second down. It was the personnel that was sent in by the Patriots. It was a run-stopping defense that had been sent in there, so they didn't feel like that was the down they wanted to run on with the personnel that they had out there, which was more of a lighter set. So I get that, but and frankly, I don't even mind passing. Just throw it into the 14th row. To me, if you just throw it away, you say this is a dead play, we're not going to get what we want, we don't like the look, just throw it away. You get the clock stopped that way, which I think was as much a reason as to why they threw the ball, was to get the clock stopped instead of having to use, I think they had 1 timeout left, use that last timeout. Just throw it up into the stands, give somebody a souvenir. Then you give it to Marshawn Lynch a couple times and see what happens. All right, let's go back to the inbox. This one comes from Ron. Ron says, I wish Scott Brooks hadn't destroyed Jeremy Lamb's confidence. He would be a good alternative to Dion Waiters.
Well, again, I have to call bogus on the premise.
Nobody's going to send an email anymore.
How did Scotty Brooks destroy Jeremy Lamb's confidence? He gave Lamb a chance to play, repeated chances, and Lamb frankly, was not very good on offense, and he's terrible on defense. So Jeremy Lamb is not a good alternative to Dion Waiters. Maybe we can find some guys in the NBA that are good alternatives to Dion Waiters. Anthony Morrow is a good alternative to Dion Waiters. Jeremy Lamb is not. I was pulling for Jeremy Lamb. I sort of like the guy. I think he had some interesting talent and skills, but the truth is his defense never came around, and his offense fluctuated unbelievably so. So I don't blame Scotty Brooks for putting Jeremy Lamb on the bench.
Yeah, you can't put this one on Scott Brooks. Now, last year, could he maybe have used Jeremy Lamb more and developed him last season? Potentially, but, I mean, with all the injuries that the Thunder had early this season, Jeremy Lamb had every opportunity to get out there and show that he was capable and he was worthy of playing time, and he did none of the above. There was never when a guy plays defense as badly as Jeremy Lamb has shown himself to play, if you can make up for it on the offensive end, you can maybe get out there. I mean, Reggie Jackson is a prime example of that. Reggie Jackson struggles to stay in front of anybody on the defensive end, but his offense makes up for it, so you put him out there. But Jeremy Lamb, his offense wasn't making up for his defensive deficiencies, and you just can't throw out a zero-sum guy who's actually a negative-sum guy like that in an NBA game. So I'm with you, Barry. I was pulling for Jeremy Lamb, kind of like him. Just didn't happen. He's just not at that caliber of level yet. All right, back to the inbox. This one's from John. John says, Bud Wilkinson won his 3 national championships with players almost exclusively from Oklahoma, North Texas, and the Panhandle. How the world has changed. The majority of top high school football prospects graduating from Oklahoma schools now leave the state to play in college. Whatever happened to the tradition of building a wall around the state and keeping our players here?
Here's what happened. The world shrank. And the same highways that took Texas players from Dallas and Houston and places north to Oklahoma, those highways travel south. So coaches come in and recruit kids. We've seen the likes of Tennessee and Alabama and Southern Cal for decades. They've been coming, and now people basically recruiting has lost almost all of its borders. Right. People go everywhere. You mentioned some recruits today talking about Ohio State and Southern Cal and just all over the place. Recruiting is national more than ever now. Oklahoma State goes to Georgia and gets guys. Why shouldn't Georgia come to Oklahoma and get guys? Yeah. That's just the way it works. So it's not the same as it was in the Bud Wilkinson days. The one thing I would like to see more of from OU and OSU is take flyers on Oklahoma kids. Yeah. The marginal prospect, go get a Jordan Evans or Ryan Broyles. These are guys that were from Norman itself, very late scholarship offers they got from OU and panned out and became very good players. So I think it's important to have Oklahoma kids on the roster. I don't think that the Sooners or Cowboys could do much about the elite prospects maybe wanting to leave, but the marginal guys, I think they could maybe enhance those numbers. Yeah,
I think that's where maybe the frustration can be felt as much as anything. I mean, when a guy like a Josh Waraboko, a Lolly, ends up potentially going somewhere else. I don't know where he's going. OU's one of his 3 finalists, so he could very well end up down in Norman. But if he ends up going to Ohio State or UCLA, one of the top players in the country, he can pick and choose 30-something offers that he receives. So he's basically gets to pick anywhere he wants, and he knows that wherever he goes, there's a good chance his folks and his family and brothers will get to see him play on TV, and he can catch a flight and be home in not too much longer than it takes to drive. So I just think that, when guys like that leave, you're not as shocked by it. Would you like them to stay? Sure, but you're not as shocked. But, I think about when we're talking about those marginal players, I think about a guy like Roger Steffen. He was on the OU National Championship team, starting linebacker for the Sooners. He was a walk-on from El Reno, if my memory serves me right. That's the type of guy that not only maybe he could become a player, but he's going to care about the school, the program, the pride in a way that's different than guys who were born somewhere else. You talk about somebody like Gabe Eichard or Kai Staley going to OSU, guys that followed these programs, loved these programs, and are passionate about them. I think when you've got guys like that on your team, you want to make sure that you don't lose that, because there's something very rallying, very central. It centralizes a team when you've got guys that are so passionate about the program in the uniform there in the locker room. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoma.